Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Legend of Korra Book 2 episode commentary track. This one's going to be for K209, the guide, obviously the 9th episode of Book 2 Spirits. This commentary will start with the intro to the show, so get your episode ready to play, including the intro for this episode. So obviously that's the Avatar The Last Airbender, Fire, Earth, Air, Water bit with the avatars. I'm going to stop speaking now in a moment, and then when I start speaking again, that's when you hit play. So I'm going to stop now, and then obviously when I speak again, hit play, and you'll be synced up with the track. Okay, so here we are with K209, the guide. Most notable, I suppose, for being the last episode of Book 2 Spirits animated by Studio Pierrot. The previous two episodes' beginnings were animated by Mur, their return to Korra, and then all the episodes after this are done by Mur as well. And I'm pretty sure that's the case for both Book 3 and 4. But yeah, this is a pretty interesting episode. In terms of, okay, this is the one where we finally, I suppose, get Korra back into the story outside of her being on her own after the events of, Peacekeepers and the Sting. And we get her returning to Tenzin here as the first kind of part of the episode, and we also get some Jinora focus once again. This episode is the one that primarily focuses on Tenzin and Jinora's relationship, with Korra obviously in there as well, kind of hitting those two birds with one stone type of thing, in that Jinora is the last one of the Airbender kids that Tenzin hasn't yet had that episode with. He has the one with Ikki, Civil Wars, and then Milo in Peacekeepers, I believe. And now he's finally getting around to giving Jinora some attention, and that comes through in a really kind of serious way with regards to Jinora's spiritual connection. They're at the Eastern Air Temple now as well, which is interesting by itself. And I love this moment here when just he's preparing everyone for a trip, and then Korra just walks in the door, just returned out of nowhere. Everyone's happy, just Korra, Tenzin's a bit shocked. It's a great moment. And then just that little moment of Korra remembering the itinerary, that she wasn't so angry that she didn't read it. She remembered and knew where to find them, and she's happy to be back again. And then there's the reveal that they haven't heard about any of the whole stuff about the war going on or anything like that. Janet Varney performs an amazing delivery of this story coming up here. It's such a long sentence, but she does it so well. Not a single comma in this sentence. Perfect explanation of everything that's happened this book so far, and then Tenzin's reaction. I knew this would happen. It's great. And obviously this is the first time we're getting to really address Korra and Tenzin's issues with each other, and I think they've both matured a bit since the last time. In that it's not just Korra, I think, who's at fault here in their mentor relationship. Tenzin's also learned from his kids and his brother and sister to be a bit more clear about these things, and that Korra's not one of his kids. He's her mentor, and he needs to kind of support her and not just demand her to do things the way he wants to do them. And then just the fact that Korra's deciding to do things like go to the spirit world is a really big moment for her, in that she's kind of finally going okay, I can't just rush in there and attack. I actually have to just go into the spirit world now. I have to make this move this way and develop spiritually. Um, then we get some really interesting stuff. Unalaq really just becomes fascinating since beginnings. Now we have the explanation on a lot of his story, in that we know harmonic convergence is a big part of his plan. We know he wants to open the portal so that harmonic convergence can happen again, and obviously he's trying to free Vatu is the explanation. And we're going to see that pretty much here. And obviously he thinks that they don't need the Avatar to do this, and he can just open it with brute force. And obviously, this has been a long time coming, and he's desperate to get this open, and things haven't quite gone exactly his way. But yeah, I'm surprised that the two of them don't react at all. Apparently, to Vatu, they had to have walked by him going from the southern portal to the northern portal, and they, there's no reaction. That's the one little bit like in that scene where the Escandesna come in. They didn't notice there had been no reaction to Vatu. This is an interesting scene too. Bolin's just left on set, even though he's a star. He's still maybe not respected the best of among everyone. He's not treated fully like a star just yet. And obviously, Mako has to prove that Varric is behind everything. But I think this is the episode where we're going to see where it doesn't quite go right for him. Bolin's not going to believe Mako because Varric has always been good to him. But and even Asami to some extent can't believe it. But Mako has the evidence here, and he's seen all what he needs to do. And I suppose I'll make a comment on the animation since this is Piero's last episode. I think they're just really they do a pretty good job considering they came on board at a pretty late stage. They probably had to get up to speed very quickly and stuff like that, but they do a reasonably good job. And this is the moment I think that just comes out of nowhere in a way. Mako and Asami back together after Korra only left like a week ago. It's just I feel like they're adding this in just for the sake of giving something to separate Mako and Korra. I think it says a lot that we really don't get anything on the Mako Korra relationship until that final scene at the end, which is more of a focus than the fact that Mako and Asami are back together. To the point where you almost at the end of the book don't know that Mako and Asami are a couple come the end of the book, considering the lack of focus they have. And then this is kind of in a way Mako's aftermath episode. In the aftermath, Korra had to really stick her neck out and go, "I know Hiroshi's behind this," and no one will believe her. This is Mako's time to do that and really show that okay, no one's believing him. He has to get this situation to his mind. And we return to Korra trying to be spiritual, and Tenzin's trying to do it the tried and trusted ways that he knows how to do it. All the spiritual items and stuff like that, meditate. But it's not working. And what I really like here is that what comes out in this episode is that Tenzin himself struggles with spirituality too. He's trying so hard to be spiritual, and he's meant to be a spiritual person, but it never happened. Nice line there from between Milo and Korra. I thought your ringing was just fine. It's just nice thing between the two of them. And then you're getting really angry at everyone else because he's actually angry at himself for not being spiritual. It's just you get some surprisingly interesting character development for Tenzin in this episode, just because he goes through so much, and then we see that Jinora can see spirits, in this case light spirits, but no one else can, not even Korra, who's been to the spirit world. So it kind of retroactively kind of tells us that some people just have the ability to see spirits, and then some people don't. Some people have well, I suppose the real thing that comes out is that spirits can hide themselves from a lot of people, and it's a little bit weird. Like, why can Iroh see some stuff, but Jinora can here, Korra can, but it's for the most part explained. And this is, I think, a key scene here. He gets angry at Korra for not talking, for talking, yet he's talking himself. And rather than her getting angry, she's just like, "What's up with you?" And then she just asked the obvious question, how did you get into the spirit world in the first place? Like, just expecting that to be the obvious, that he's done it before. And then he swears to admit he's never been to the spirit world too. And she's kind of learning from someone who hasn't done it, and it's just like, why didn't you tell me this before? And even Pema's like, what? He's spent days trying to do this, and he's just like, no. It's a really kind of sad moment where like this was what he was kind of destined to do, and he's been trying so hard to do it, and it just never worked out for him. It's just it's a really sad moment. And then when like the reveal of Janora comes out, he's kind of like he kind of just reluctantly has to like let his daughter do this for the sake of the world. I just accept that it wasn't him who's destined to be like her spiritual guide. It was the guide of the episode title is Janora, not him. But he can help her in other ways, and that's nice. It really kind of elevates Janora onto this other level that she just is intrinsically a very spiritual person. And she's been keeping a lot of this from people, and she has spirit friends. It's just I hope we get more of this in the coming books. I hope Janora becomes this kind of maybe not a main character like on Team Avatar, but becomes the most main among the minor characters. And I think that seems to be the case. She's getting some attention in the later books. And then we see a little bit of the connection between Janora and Kaya here too. That she's the one who noticed this. I think it was stated before the book even began that she had a connection. And then Tenzin is shocked that his daughter is able to do this, and that he never knew. He never even thought about seeing it. It's just some good stuff with him and his children over the course of the book. It's pretty well done. And then Boomy and Boomju is just a really interesting kind of spirit human relationship. Now, obviously, harmonic convergence has also explained to us what happens in the Southern Lights, why one statue was the one to glow, and that's because one closed the portals, so Korra opening them kind of signaled him because his energy was what actually closed them in the first place. So that's what that connection is about. And then he's just trying to open it through sheer force, just bending the thing down and not working at all. This is a spirit portal. You need to have the avatar who did it. And then basically Desna nearly gets killed here, and he's just like, leave him. And we see Eska shows some concern here, showing that as much as she's kind of been very much like her father, she actually cares about her brother and has feelings herself. And the two are, as much as they want to do everything their father says, they're different than him. And I think what really comes out here is that a lot of people say Unalaq doesn't really have a kind of goal or motive or anything like that, or much character development. But I think the big character development is just that he's a guy who's kind of lost his humanity over the course of this trying to free Vatu, and thinks that the only thing he can do is become a spirit, and so looks completely down on all humans and doesn't even care about his own children. And that's a really interesting idea for a villain, that he's a guy who just doesn't care about being a human anymore and is just cares more about spirits and becoming one himself. That's cool. Really interesting idea. And then nice threatening kind of room for Varric here. Mako's expecting to be tortured on hot coal, but Varric just does it himself. And then just Varric playing really coy with Mako. They both don't want to say anything, but they both know what they're being talked about. And he's trying to get Mako on his side, so he's not investigating him. It's just very well done. And he's basically threatening to do something to Asami or Bolin if Mako doesn't help. And instead, him refusing actually gets thrown in jail because Varric plants evidence. It's just continuing the whole idea of Varric not quite being a full villain, but doing these little villainous things to make sure he gets his own way. And he's done a lot of bad stuff, but ultimately he's not doing something insanely villainous, but still really you want to like Varric. I think is the main thing. And then this is just a nice interaction between Jinora and Korra. You know, like Korra thinks Jinora's lucky for having this connection to spirits, but Janora's like, "Whoa, you got to meet the first Avatar. I want to do that so much," and she tells part of this story. And I like that Korra actually tells someone parts of this story, and it's not just, "Oh, I saw it. I'm not going to mention it again." And here's the explanation on her seeing one statue. And as I explained earlier on, the explanation for why one statue glowed at this exact moment when Korra opened the portal. And then they come to this spiritual area of the temple that's not specifically linked to the temple. It's just an area in the mountain range. But yeah, and this is where Tenzin gets his kind of chance to shine here in the episode. He may not fully get to go to the spirit world and just make that big move to kind of help Korra, but he just does these little things, just through his knowledge, his study of trying to be spiritual, knows what to do here. The spiritual cleansing ceremony. And Aang thought him this, so I'm kind of wondering where Aang learned it from. Actually, the Rift, I suppose, could have the potential to show us something like this, depending on how it goes, but yeah, we have to wait for the Rift to come out for that, to see what happens there. Just nice to see some really interesting kind of airbending with the smoke, that he actually does something here. Like a lot of the other stuff he's been doing, you know, like got Iki to play the kind of instrument, Mila with the bell, but this is something actual, like spiritual ability. I see that there are actually dark spirits here, so they have kind of taken root throughout the world, and I assume that Unalaq is to explain for that too. That Unalaq, once he comes to the human world, will have power because there are dark spirits in the human world anyway. And they're kind of stopping this area from being able to be like used as a kind of proper spiritual portal. And they start to fight them off, but then Korra, I think this is one of Korra's best moments in the book. She doesn't even try to fight them really after this, and just steps up, uses that skill that I suppose Unalaq didn't quite teach her, but skill that she used because she saw Unalaq use, and now she's spiritual enough after hearing that story about Juan that she can utilize it correctly. And I like that this is one of the big kind of themes throughout the book of Korra getting this move correct or not correct sometimes, and how ultimately her victory is because of this, something that Unalaq basically taught her. And she purifies these light spirits. Would appreciate more of an explanation about what exactly that process does. I think Mike and Brian have explained it, and that it's kind of like a kind of healing ability to do with like good and bad energy, light and dark energy. But yes, and that's a key point there that Korra makes, in that um, while Unalaq has technically used Korra, he was actually instrumental in making Korra as spiritual as she's needed to be in terms of powers. But as she explains here, that Tenzin is the kind of person who supported her, like and cared about her, and that's what she appreciates. Even if he can't be a super spiritual mentor in terms of teaching her things, he could still be this guide to her just throughout life, and this supportive person, and she appreciates that. And it's just a nice apology between the two. No need for anything overly dramatic. It's just like, I apologize, and then even though Jinora has proven herself to be spiritual, Tenzin still thinks that, oh, we found the spiritual spot. I can go into the spirit world now. I can finally make it happen. And you're happy to see that happen too. And then you get the sad moment at the end. Like, this is really the only episode where we kind of get it addressed that Mako and Asami are together again. It kind of does both characters a disservice over the course of the book. Mako, I think, becomes a kind of victim of the writing at this point, just because of how all over the place he is with relationships. Um, Same with Asami to some extent, because her story kind of falls apart after this, in that we don't get much resolution on it. Book three, I think, was going to be really important for Asami. She does need some time. But I think it's an important scene that you have them together in the room when this search happens and Mako's taken away, and Asami knows he didn't do anything to ruin her, and this is what really gets her on Mako's side, and that's a nice kind of moment to have, and so it kind of made sense. But the relationship stuff is a bit kind of overdone, overly dramatic, but it is just a small part of the episode. And he's got some evidence planted here and is being framed. And I just find it funny that Lu and Gon are now putting stuff together to make Mako out to be the bad guy, yet they wouldn't put two and two together to make four based on everything else that has happened. They just ignore the whole bombing investigation and everything like that. But oh, Mako's a potential suspect. Let's do everything we can and stuff like that. It's just really kind of weird. Makes you just hate the two of them. But here we see Tenzin struggling, and he's getting upset and just angry again. This isn't what he was meant to do. It's just interesting thing that he thought this was his destiny the whole time, but it's actually Janora's. And then he becomes the kind of protective father. It's kind of the same thing with Tonrock and Korra in that being overly protective here, but he has to kind of accept that this is what Janora needs to do, and he's gonna let her do it. And I like this line from Janora here. She's just like, I can do this. I'll be all right." And he has to just trust her that Korra needs to do this. The world needs this, and he's kind of just willing to accept here that I may never have this skill, but I'm gonna let you do this. It's just really nice development. I think a lot of shows where you have like a family like that, they never really do it too much. So I really appreciate that book two had like a moment where you basically had an episode where Tenzin focused on the relationship with each of his kids, more or less. And obviously Rohan's a bit too young to be doing any sort of development with him, but if they ever do a time skip, it'd be interesting to do something there. And we end the episode with this is really well animated here as they go into the spirit world, the kind of light spirit section of the spirit world. So showing that okay, there's still some good stuff in the spirit world here. It's not completely all evil with everything that's happening, but they're in the spirit world. And then he thinks he has failed. And just obviously convenient in that Eskandesna leaves before he goes to talk to Vatu. Did they not notice him at all? But this definitely sets up the events of the next episode when, okay, I can see in the Tree of Time that Korra is in here, Janora is also in here. You can use these to your advantage to get Korra to open the spirit world. It's a nice setup for the next episode, which isn't something we've had too often, that like, okay, we're setting up a cliffhanger, this character's going to do this next episode, shock horror, that's what's going to happen. So I like the end of this episode, and that it sets something up rather than just have a cliffhanger like what's going on, a question. You're just kind of going, oh, even though they're in the spirit world, something's finally gone right. They're in danger. Vatu's after them, and as is Unalak. It's just a very nice way to end the episode, and very solid episode too. Character focused, while still kind of moving the plot along. That they've come up with the plan to get into the spirit world, and that's how she's going to shut the portals again. But yeah, that's the guide. Hopefully, I'll get the commentary for a new spiritual age episode 10 out tomorrow. And then I hopefully should have the book two commentaries done by sometime next week. But thanks for listening to this one, and bye.